Welcome to Car and Driver. This is the Chevy Equinox EV, and as its name might suggest, it's an all-electric compact SUV. What this really has going for it though is range and affordability. It offers over 300 miles of range and has a price that isn't eye-popping in the way some new EVs can be. So what does it cost? Well, at the beginning, the least expensive version of the Equinox EV that you'll be able to get is going to be in the low $40,000 range, like around 43. The most expensive versions kind of flirt with 50, but later in 2024, Chevy says it's going to introduce a base version that costs around 35 grand. And keep in mind, this is all before any federal incentive that you might qualify for, as well as local and state incentives that might be out there too. Now, how about range? Front drive models get 319 miles of range, where the all-wheel drive versions bring that down to 285 miles of range. What's nice is going from front drive to all-wheel drive costs about $3,300 between trim level to trim level, and you can get it on all trim levels. Now, the other thing you gotta know about options is that there's two kind of visual flavors of the Equinox EV, LT and RS. The difference is purely aesthetic. You can get the same equipment on an LT as you can on an RS, they just look different. This one is an RS. So all Equinox EVs have an 85 kilowatt hour battery, and it'll accept DC fast charging up to 150 kilowatts. Now, Chevy says that'll get you about 70 miles of range in 10 minutes, assuming of course that DC fast charger is working properly, which can still be an issue these days, frustratingly enough. At home or on a level 2 charger, you'll get 11 kilowatts, and that should be sufficient for charging this thing overnight. Now, as far as the overall shape and size of this vehicle, this is a little bit bigger than some internal combustion engine compact SUVs, but similar to other EV compact SUVs. For example, it's a bit longer than a Tesla Model Y, but roughly the same width. Let's take a look inside. Before we start taking a look at the interior, I want to call out a feature of this, which is probably my second favorite feature of EVs, and that's the fact that there's no start button. You hop in this thing with the key in your pocket, all you have to do is hit the brake, and that, in effect, becomes your start button. A lot of EVs from traditional automakers haven't embraced this capability that EVs can do, and it's really nice to see GM doing it because, in my opinion, it's the right way for EVs to work. Why have another start button when the brake button basically does the same thing? You get used to it. It's really nice. It's the exact same way your phone works. It's great. Glad to see it's embraced here. Now, you've also probably already seen this enormous screen. It's 17.7 inches. It's the same screen you get in all Equinox EVs. In fact, there are other Chevy SUVs you also get this display in as well. It's going to be very familiar with Chevy vehicles in the future. And yeah, it's huge. And what's nice in the brief time that we've driven this car so far is it seems to work pretty fluidly with, let's say, the limited access that we've had so far. It really takes time and use to see how this system will age, how you'll get comfortable using it over time, but the initial impressions are pretty strong with regard to responsiveness and fluidity. There is a downside though, of course there is, and that is this doesn't support Apple CarPlay. If you're an Apple owner, like many people out there are, that's, let's just say it politely, is suboptimal. But if you're a Google fan and really into Google's ecosystem, this does have Google's in-car software suite, so you can log in and use this as you would use it on your Android. And Google Maps here works exactly the same way you would expect. That's nice, really fluid, really seamless. There's a lot of features in there though that will take more time to cover than we have, so let's talk about the rest of the interior. Seats, pretty comfortable as well. Storage, you have a large, deep center bin here. You've got cup holders up here, of course. You've got a tray right here, which is pretty nicely sized for multiple devices. There's a pass-through storage underneath this armrest, which will hold a handbag, which is nice as well. Modestly sized door pockets. And as we get back up, you see another screen in front of the driver. This is a pretty attractive and high resolution display that has a lot of information in it. And it'll, again, it's one of those things that takes time to get accustomed with. far as cargo space goes, you get 26.4 cubic feet behind the second row, 57.2 cubic feet with the second row folded flat. You can buy yourself a little bit more space by lowering this cargo floor, though in order to do that, you have to move the bag that contains the charger and all that. This isn't as much space as you can find in other compact SUVs. This is a little bit less space than you would get in a Model Y, for example, and quite a bit less space than what you would find in other gas-powered compact SUVs. The Honda CR-V comes to mind, and that vehicle is also smaller on the outside too. Still though, this is enough for some folks out there. When we're talking about compact SUVs, EV or otherwise, this is what they're going to spend the majority of their time doing. Sitting on the freeway, cruising at 65, 70 miles an hour, staring at taillights. So it's a good way to test out the Equinox EV in this environment. This front drive version has 215 horsepower. Getting the dual motor all-wheel drive setup gets you 288 horsepower, but 215 horsepower, let's face it, feels like 215 horsepower. This is not exceptionally quick. Chevy says that the dual motor all-wheel drive versions will get 60 miles an hour in under 6.5 seconds. This feels a bit slower than that. I said that my second favorite thing with EVs was hands-free ignition. My first favorite thing with EVs, my absolute favorite thing with EVs, is how immediately they respond when you nail the accelerator. This doesn't have as much of that immediate power delivery as I would hope an EV to have. If I nail it right now, I can see the power delivery jump up, but the speed doesn't rise in a way that feels as satisfying. But again, it's 215 horsepower. Set your expectations accordingly. On the flip side of acceleration, what this does have is variable levels of regenerative braking. You can go as strong as this van cuts us off. You can go as strong as one pedal drive, which when you come off that accelerator, it comes hard on the regenerative braking and it slows you down quite aggressively. I was pretty surprised by the rate of deceleration from one pedal driving. You can back it down to normal and that feels a little bit more reasonable for the road, but I appreciate that Chevy gives you the option to do that. What's also nice about the Equinox EV is every trim level can option Super Cruise, which when we turn on, after I turn on adaptive cruise control and hit this button, we are using Chevy's hands-free driving. Let me turn up the speed a little bit so we're not blocking traffic. And once you get this set up, I'm hands-free. This will do automatic lane changes for me. It'll maintain speed. What it doesn't appear to do is follow the navigation route that I've set, but it does do everything with regard to lane changes and managing its space with the flow of traffic all by itself. And it's the brief time that we've driven it today, it seems to work pretty well, but you would also expect Chevy's hands-free driving technology to work pretty well in the Detroit metro area. So set your expectations accordingly. What's nice is when it does those automatic lane changes, it's going to vibrate my seat in the direction of the lane change, and it is getting out of the way of traffic coming up behind us, which is pretty cool. You have a green light on the steering wheel here that tells you that it's on. When it's about to turn off because it's getting to a road that it doesn't understand or construction, it blinks, the seat vibrates. It shuts off pretty quickly, so you do have to pay attention constantly. You shouldn't be looking at your phone. You shouldn't be looking at your phone, period, while you're in a car at the driver wheel. But overall, it seems to be pretty smooth on these roads here. Chevy tells us that there's over 750,000 miles of roads that support Super Cruise. So chances are if you live by or use a major freeway or major popular roads, it's probably going to work for you. This option is about $2,000 depending on the trim level, but you can get it on all trim levels, which is nice. Steering and handling is basically what you would expect from a vehicle of this kind. It's not particularly outstanding in terms of feel, but it's not bad either. You can adjust it. You do have drive modes, normal, sport, and whatnot, and you have an individual drive mode. You can adjust it. I doubt many compact SUV owners will actually explore those features, but you can if you want. The ride quality is pretty decent too. We're on the available 21-inch wheels, and you do feel some impacts through wheel diameter that large, but not enough to take away from the comfort of the drive. On this initial experience with the Chevy Equinox EV, it seems like there's a lot of things that'll resonate with people who want this kind of vehicle. You get a lot of range for your dollar, especially compared to other EVs in this segment. You have nice features from hands-free driving to this massive display. On the downside, you don't get Apple CarPlay and the cargo space is a little lacking, but overall this could be the right fit for just the right shopper.